Sorry, what was that, Anthony? You a bit depressed?
I'm feeling a little bit depressed. I've been misrepresented again.
Misrepresented?
Yeah. Do you want to share my screen and I can share the story?
Yeah, sure.
Let me know when we're on.
Yeah, you're on.
So, as most people know, Nathan and I live in the UK, and we went to the Jury's Inn in Birmingham recently for the first Flat Earth conference in the UK, and I led the opening on the Friday night. And we had at the time we had a back and forth with people like the Rumpus, because I was challenged to go repeat my observation that I did, but instead of doing it from the hilltops, go down onto the beach and do it. That was one of the things that I was challenged to do, and I basically went and did it. So if I zoom in a little bit, just to show you a little bit of what this island should look like. Um, Basically, what I was trying to show people was that we cannot live. Ooh, I need to make that terrain button. There we go. We cannot live on a sphere because we see stuff that's too far away. I'll make this a little bit bigger so it can be seen. Why am I not getting a three-dimensional topography? What's going on? Let me try and work out why. Hang on. I'm sure it's because of that. That's better. So it's been a while since we've touched on anything to do with the Isle of Man, so I'll just repeat it a little bit. We see Snaefell Mountain, we see North Barule, and then we see this land that's down. You can see Ireland in the back. Don't know, not quite sure why that would be, but anyway, these hills that are here and all these hills that go off into the distance is what I was looking for, and I was challenged to go and get this information from the beach because I got it from the top of the hill, and whatever height that turns out to be, about 100 feet. If it was really a sphere, there would be absolutely no way possible that you could ever see it on a sphere if we can get the land from the beach, because you shouldn't be able to get it. So I went back to the beach, and I'll show you the bit where I zoomed out first because this is basically the creme de la creme. Um, these are the effects, which are contrast and brightness. I've taken them off the video, and this is the bit where I zoom out because basically it was to show that I'm actually on the beach. Now, if we live on a sphere, this should be 700 feet behind the curve of the Earth, right? And that's not taking into account perspective. Once you take into account that the 300-foot cliffs that we see are completely and utterly behind the curve, taken from the beach with the camera on there, should not be seen. So we can see that the land that I first failed to identify is seen on screen now. That's North Barule. And I'm going to look down to the point where it drops into the sea. And then when it drops into the sea, we're down to like 100 feet or so. I go across the gap to find this little bit of land. And this is only 300 feet, but it's big enough to see just. And it's in the middle of the screen right now. Um, but you shouldn't see this. This should be 700 feet behind the curvature with a bulge that's stopping you from seeing it. And that doesn't account for perspective. But this was taken from the beach, lay on my belly on the wet sand, and it's a problem because it's 700 feet of missing curve, right? And we can see it. Now, it is very small, it is 34 miles away, and it's only 300 feet tall. So perspective makes things get smaller as a function of distance. Well, how tall or how big is 300 feet going to look like from 34 miles away? I mean, it's half the height of Blackpool Tower. It's not that big, but that's what we can see. So this is the imagery that I released at the Jury's Inn as the exclusive for FE Core. But unfortunately, what's happened is that it turns out on the front page of the Isle of Man Examiner, the paper that they get in the Isle of Man, they've got an article that says that it turns out the Earth is not flat after all. Go to page 4. So when you go to page 4, you get this section: Isle of Man's proof. Isle of Man's proof that the Earth is flat. Starts off pretty positive. Everyone from Aristotle to NASA has got it wrong. The Earth is flat. And seeing the Isle of Man from Lancashire is all the proof that some need. Flat Earth and Me has shown off a video proving his theory that at a Flat Earth conference in Jury's Inn in Birmingham. He says that the fact that he can take a picture of the Isle of Man from England proves that the Earth is not curved. In a report by Esquire, he said, quote, I lay on the beach on my belly. The water was there 20 minutes ago, and now I'm lying in the wet sand. There's people on the beach wondering what the hell is he doing. And I'm wondering, can I see it? Is it there? Now, I did actually say that. That quote, Sean Hufford, is accurate. That's how you quote people. You do it accurate, so the citation is true. And that is what I said. After Mr. Riley's speech, flat earthers have become obsessed with the Isle of Man videos, proving that the earth is flat, cropping up upon YouTube frequently. There is just one problem. They don't prove that the earth is flat at all. Really? Well, all that land I've just shown you is 700 feet below the curvature of the earth, with a bulge of water in between you and it. And it has not been reduced in size as a function of distance in accordance with the rules of perspective, which is not an artistic illustration. It is real world. That's the way we see. None of that land should be seen. So, actually, the reason you see the Isle of Man is due to refraction and how light rays bend with the surface of the ocean. The idea has been repeatedly debunked on sites such as Metabunk and Flat Earth Insanity.
Can I just
Well, I'm not familiar
interrupt
with
there?
Flat Earth.
Sorry, Anthony. So we're going to hear now what Mick from Metabunk's actually got to say on this subject.
You can conclude this point by saying that you've accepted that it was based on an assumption. Do you still maintain that position?
Well, it's the standard model of the
Sorry,
world.
the standard model has no scientific backing. It is an assumption, correct?
Well, it's the standard model.
Sorry, the standard model has no scientific evidence. You only assume a value of R. Correct, Mick? For crying out loud, man.
Yeah.
Right. So
to claim that it's been debunked on sites like Metabunk and Flat Earth Insanity is not true. It's not factually true. What has happened on Metabunk is that we've realized that things do get smaller as a function of distance, that light does not bend in arc of 7/6, based on a presuppositional R value that Mick himself admits that he cannot prove. It is an assumption. And obviously, what was the other thing? I can't remember what the other thing was now.
Well, the main point...
Anyway,
let me just get it in. That's the main point. If you're going to claim that Mick West's Metabunk site or any other curve calculator site debunks what you can obviously and observably see in a picture, then you have to accept that those sites will give you a spherical Earth output regardless of what input you put in, because they are a begging the question, perspective hijacking curve calculator. They already assume the outcome. So if you're going to use one of those calculators, you're already on a sphere the second you go to the site. It's called a curve calculator, and it makes it very clear in the formula at the top. You can put in your distance to target, you can put in your elevation, but the radius of Earth, they've already got. So you don't need to do any measurements or distance calculations or height with any of what you look at. You just need to look at it and say, there it is. No explanation required. Or you can assume you're on a sphere and go from there. That's what the Metabunk calculator does. It doesn't prove anything. It certainly doesn't debunk Anthony's observation. It's just an observation. He can see this stuff because it's there. Now, if you want to claim that the Earth is a sphere and light's bending around that sphere at 7/6 of the radius of the sphere, then you're an idiot. You're deluded, and all you're doing is begging the question. You're guilty of logical fallacy. Anyway, sorry, Anthony.
And you're guilty of stupidity as well, because if you're going to claim that it's debunked, then it has to actually be debunked. You can't say it's been debunked and then it is debunked. It has to be proven that it's wrong, and they haven't proved it. All they've given is a story that's lovely, but has no evidence to support it. Because the problem is, it doesn't tell you about perspective. Things get smaller as a function of distance. Light does not bend at the rate of 7/6 of the radius of the Earth. And the radius of Earth itself, by way of Mick himself, is accepted that it's an assumption. It isn't actually true. So to claim that, for this paper to claim that it's been repeatedly debunked on sites such as Metabunk and Flat Earth Insanity is fallacious. It's utterly rubbish. Now, I don't know
the entire
why,
body of science.
I don't know why anybody would believe that this would be true, but they're all going to believe it because it's so far out and crazy. But let's be honest, none of that land should be seen. None of it. And it can be seen from the beach. Well, I don't know what else to say about it other than, well, that's not being supported by the claim itself. But anyway, Metabunk points out that if Earth really was flat, you would be able to see the whole of the Isle of Man, rather than just the tip of the island's highest peak, Snaefell. Well, that's not what I showed, is it? I didn't show the high parts of the Isle of Man. I showed the low parts of the Isle of Man. And there's stuff that shouldn't be seen. Who cares about the high points? Nobody's going to argue that point. That is called a straw man.
Hates
I did
Earth.
not show anything about Snaefell. Pardon?
I said hates Earth.
So-
Sorry. Go ahead.
So the tourism website for Cleveland near Blackpool says that if you're lucky enough to be in the right place at the right time, you are seeing the Isle of Man with the help of an atmospheric phenomenon. Really? So a concrete noun has now become a phenomenon, Nathan. Have you got anything to say about this phenomenon claim?